Call this meeting to order. Good morning and welcome to the first meeting of the Interim Joint Budget Review Subcommittee on Justice and Judiciary for the 2023 interim. Any meeting materials received before the deadline are posted online and available for downloading. At this time, we'll have the clerk to call roll.
Senator Nemes, Senator Schickel, Senator Webb, Representative Brown, Representative Decker,
Present.
Representative Kulkarni,
Present.
Representative Sharp, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Representative Petrie, Representative Reed, Representative Elliott, Senator Williams, Chair Flannery.
Present. Thank you. First up, we have the Kentucky State Police, an update from the Commissioner. Mr. Commissioner, if you could come forward, please. Sir, if you could introduce yourself for the record, and then you may begin.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Colonel Philip Burnett, Jr., and I'm currently the Commissioner of Kentucky State Police. Excuse me, sir? Oh, yes, sir. Let's make sure. I was asked to be here today to talk about a status report, regarding recruitment and retention for our troopers and officers for our agency and perspective, as well as recent trends. First, I'd like to start out that overall, the Kentucky State Police, I consider we're in a good area at this time. The reason why is because, first of all, we were 74th in pay when I first come here in 2021, and then we were last in surrounding pay, and then working with General Assembly and working with administration and Governor Brashear, we were in the top 5 in starting pay in Kentucky, which that could have changed some since that became effective July 1st, 2022, with House Bill 259. But I do know with that has dramatically helped our agency on 3 different levels with recruitment and retention, and also to ward off retirements. First of all, just a little tidbit about us, not to step back, but July 1st will be the 75th anniversary of Kentucky State Police. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the men and women that have wore this uniform and all the support that we've had from our leaders for our agency to be where we're at here for our anniversary. With this support that we've received from the General Assembly, this has truly been transformational for our agency. It's been transformational for our troopers and our officers, and for one reason, they don't have to get a second job just to be able to feed their families. So with that, I think we've been a success of what pay will do, for an agency, especially one the size of Kentucky State Police and what we've been tasked with. So, I'll talk about 3 different entities. As I said, recruitment, retention, and retirements. First of all, our recruitment, I'll do a historical basis that was requested. In 2020, that was Cadet Class 100. With that, we had 580 applications, but that process was open for over 15 months. In 2021, we had Cadet Class 101. That period was open for 17 months, and we had 511 applications. In 2022, we had Cadet Class 102, and that period of recruitment was open for 12 months, and we had 297 applications. Cadet Class 103, which is currently in session, that will be graduating in August, that period was open for 10 months, and we had 415 applications. But one thing I'd like to say with the historic pay raise that we received, that class was already in 5 months before that was official. So we was actually recruiting on salaries prior to that. But what I'm happy to report, and I'd like to take away from here, is that we're currently recruiting for Cadet Class 104. We have it slated to begin in January of 2024. That has been open for 1 month. In that 1 month, we already have 329 applications for 1 month. So with that, we've been able to advertise the pay increases that we were given. A starting trooper out of that class with the CLEP stipend and per diem will be making $65,000 a year. Our numbers, our recruitment numbers, been very good with that. And there have been some other things as well. We've used money that we were given that were $500,000 in recruitment efforts back prior to this in 2021 that we were able to expand our recruitment section to the biggest that it's been in the history, where we're able to have females, minorities in there because that's one of the things that really helps us with our recruiting. Because when we talk with potential candidates, when they say what brought me to Kentucky State Police is I saw somebody like me in your uniform. So we want to make sure that we continue with that. But with that, we're also able to do static billboards, micro-targeting, a multitude of different things that we've not been able to do in our history, and it's paid off. One other fact, before the pay raise become into effect that we were administered, before July the 1st of 2022, with those historical data that I just talked about, we averaged 31 applications per month. After that, after we received the pay increase, after July the 1st, now it's 67 per month. Also, last year, just in the calendar year, between two of our classes, Cadet Class 101 and Cadet Class 102, which they kind of overlapped in that year, we graduated over 107 troopers. One thing I'd like to mention, I talk with commissioners and colonels from different state police agencies across the country. Actually, I flew in last night from Mississippi, where I was at the southern region dealing with highway patrols and other colonels from state police agencies. And the one thing, when I talk about our numbers, they want to know what Kentucky's doing, because they're nowhere near where we're at. There are a couple states that are north of us that are doing comparative with us, but with the numbers that we have, you know, they're really impressed with where we're at. And I discussed some of the things that we've done. But they've been a whole lot of work in this too, not just bringing people in. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our entire recruitment branch, our public affairs branch for the social outreach programs that we've done in recruiting, our academy staff, training staff. That's a huge burden to put on them to train that many men and women to become troopers. Also, with having to do in-service training to keep our current troopers and officers certified. So I'd like to thank them. But, you know, we also put a call out to every man and woman wearing this uniform to help in recruiting, because at the end of the day, those are our best recruiters, the ones that they see in the communities every day. And they have seen the fruits of the labor that they need to bring in qualified people as well. So it's been a collaborative effort on our recruiting. First with the pay increases, but also a lot of hard work on the men and women of our agency, and I'd like to thank them. When I was here in 2021, you know, I was talking about our numbers. We were in the 700s, which was the lowest we've been in over 30 years. With this class that I talked about, Cadet Class 103, that will be graduating in August, that should put us up potentially with some of our Trooper R's, about between 940 and 950. A long way from where we were at back then. One thing I also like to talk about was our retention, what this pay raise did for us. Talk about resignations. In 2018, we averaged 24 sworn resignations. 2019, we had 19. 2020, we had 26. 2021, we had 34. 2022, we had 12. And for 2023, we have 1. Those resignations that we had in those years past, over 63% of those left for higher salaries, and 60% of those went to other law enforcement agencies with higher salaries. But as I said, with House Bill 259 and the raise, those numbers have almost ceased. Retirements, where we at on retirements? That is one of my concerns right now. Because with the retention, we were able to keep a lot of our qualified, seasoned veteran men and women with our agency. But a historical on retirements, in 2018, we had 65 troopers and 17 CVE for a total of 82 retirements. 2019, we had 47 troopers, 2 CVE for a total of 49. For 2020, we had 29 trooper retirements, 3 CVE for a total of 32. For 2021, we had 40 retirements, 6 CVE for a total of 46. But what I'm glad to say for 2022, so far what we've tracked has been 4 retirements. As of right now, or before 2022, we were averaging about 52 sworn retirements a year. But as of today, we have 84 sworn that can retire. For the calendar year 2023, we'll have 112 that can retire. For fiscal year 2024, we'll have 144. And for calendar year 2024, we'll have 165 that are eligible to retire. But with 16052, our KRS dealing with our pay increases, our pay scale, and there is also a CPI within that. And I feel like that this is going to maintain and keep a lot of these there, but we are going to be facing some retirements coming. So that's why that we're running these classes that we can. Cadet Class 104 that we're currently recruiting for will begin in January of 2024. So we expect that to be another large class. The class we just started in February that's currently in is the second largest starting class that we've ever had. It was Cadet Class 103. It wasn't significant. It wasn't a significance, but it was. We started with 103. So that just kind of worked out that way. But that's kind of an overview of where we're at on personnel. One thing that I was asked was, to be here, a biggest obstacle. One thing I do worry about is that a lot of other agencies within Kentucky have brought their salaries up since we received the pay increase in July. And the reason why we know that is because we have our class. What we do, we start every class with traditional cadets, and that's someone with no law enforcement experience. But we also started the beginning of it, what we call LEAP candidates. Those are certified police officers, and they go through an abbreviated academy class. Our traditional class is 24 months. A LEAP candidate is 24 weeks, and our LEAP is 13. It's an abbreviated because they're already trained. There's a lot of things they already have. So, but we only have 5 that will be in this class that are LEAP candidates. And what we saw with potential candidates was that they were going to come and put in an application at KSP, and then other departments that's a lot more nimble about pay were able to bring their pay up. There's different things they were able to do to keep those there. That's the only thing I worry about going forward, because if you take, like this recruitment cycle, if you take 9 months to recruit them, you take 24 weeks to train them, then they have to go to a field training officer process, which is 12 weeks. That takes time. It takes time to get those in there. And then with our budget, with the biennium, it's every 2 years. But that's my biggest worry right now, is just the nimbleness to be able to deal for our troopers to be able to remain competitive, so we can attract the best of the best at what we can have. That's really about all I have. Dealing with that, I give a historical on that, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that update. It was really informative.
Thank
I
you.
just had a couple of questions for you, just for my understanding in terms of context. What was your target recruitment goal per cadet class prior to the salary raise, and how has that changed in terms of how many people you would like to see ideally in every class applying? And then the second question I had was in terms of the average age for recruits, and then the average age for those that are retiring.
The most that we can train in a class starting out safely is 110. That's the most that we can put in. Now, we do have some mechanisms that if we have a high dropout rate within the first week, we can backfill those. So we would like to keep that as full as we could. We sent out over 110 officers, if I'm not mistaken. It's about 112, 113 for this current class. We just had some didn't show up. So we just had to go with what we had. But our numbers got so low. Well, the most we've ever had was 1,007 in 2006. But that included cadets that was in a current cadet class that they wanted to include at that time. But really, we have not been oversworn over 1,000, I know of, in the past 30 years. So it took us years to get in this shape, to go from near 1,000 down to in the 700s, which was critical levels. So now we are recruiting, and we're pushing forward all we can to run as many as we can in a class. So if we could start with 110, I would love to start with 110, but we just have to go with what the applications are. And one thing that I'm proud to say, we've not sacrificed our standards. Kentucky expects the best product that they can see for a man or woman in uniform out there, and we've not sacrificed that. Obviously, we tailor our training with society's social issues, but we have not changed that product. Because when the worst things has happened in Kentucky, there's been a man or woman in uniform standing there, whether it be civil unrest, whether it be officer-involved shootings, whether it be tornadoes or eastern Kentucky flooding, things that we have done, we've always been there. So we don't want to sacrifice our standards, and we'll just keep building, and, we're able to maintain. I would love to have over 1,000 troopers, but it's going to take us time to build through that. And your second question, I'm sorry, but I don't have the number. I can get that to you about the average age of recruit. I would assume the best that I can remember is around 25, 26, but I couldn't. I would want to get you some official information on
Yeah,
that.
that's fine. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that report, and thank you for your service. And I'm glad to hear that we're headed in the right direction with our numbers.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to add one point, and I want you to hear me loud, and I want you to hear me clear. I take issue with the standards, and we can talk about that privately. But I do take issue with it, and but I'm glad to see that it's on your radar. I want you to know that the most qualified person for the job, myself and the people I represent, think should be hired, and not political correctness should not come into the calculation. So it's important to us, and I know it's important to the troopers I talk to too, that the integrity of the standards be maintained.
And yes, sir. And I think we've done that over our inception as an agency. You look how professional and what we are looked at, what Kentuckians look at us, and other state police and highway patrol agencies across the country. As I said, I attend conferences with these other colonels. You know, we're 75 years, and we still maintain our integrity, our professionalism, where we can depend on when things like that happen. I'm a 28-year trooper, and I started working in Eastern Kentucky, worked the road, and I never want to sacrifice the standard or integrity. And as long as I'm here, I'll assure you that those will not be altered.
I have a few questions. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate your service. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, sir.
Got a list of questions here. I think you have answered or partially answered some of them, but I just want to go through them. One of my questions dealt with the numbers, where we were at and where we are now. I think your answer was we've went from approximately 721 to about approximately 950 at this current time. Is that correct?
I think it would be up at 746. We didn't have trooper R's included at that time, but now we have 67 trooper R's, and what that is retired troopers that have come back on a contract basis for us, and those have been very, very successful. That has been a great program for us to be able to fill our ranks on the operational issues that we need.
Next line of questions deal with the academy classes. How many are projected annually for the 22 through 24 biennium budget?
Well, it's hard to be able to say because we started this class with 103. We have 51 cadets remaining. So it's hard to be able to project what that will be because we have some attrition rates that may be 30%. This one is higher than most. So it's kind of hard to be able to project that, how many is actually going to graduate to be able to know that.
How many classes do you have, though? I guess more of my question, not how many cadets are in the class, but how many classes will there be throughout a year? What's projected?
We'll have this one that will graduate in August, and then we'll start another one in January.
So 2 per year?
Yes.
Is
Well,
that-
it really can't run 2 per year. They overlap. We would like to look at some things about tailoring when we start a class each year, because we have some that are college students and they don't want to drop out of where it would be within a semester. So we would like to try to get that to where it would be like the end of a semester on college for that to work out. So we're still working through that.
Traditionally, have there been approximately 2 classes per year?
About 1.5 because they overlap, sir.
You discussed the LEAP Academy.
Yes.
Is that something that's new?
That's something we have done the past few classes because we have some great certified police officers across our state, and those are ones that we would like to bring in. What we did before, we would run one just depend 2-3 classes what we need for our numbers. Now we're just making it where potential candidates know that when state police starts an academy, that the first half of that class will be for LEAP candidates. It will be an abbreviated class. So we'll do that every class going forward.
Okay, last question deals with the barriers to recruitment and retention. What I believe I heard you say is that retirement is becoming an issue, and also maybe a good problem to have is that other agencies have increased their pay based upon the increased funding from the legislature going to state troopers. Those seem to be 2 issues that you've raised. Are there any other issues that you see currently happening or that you project that will happen that would affect recruitment and retention?
Not that I foresee at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have any other questions for the Commissioner? Sir, we thank you for your testimony today. I appreciate you and your agency and what you all do for this Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next up, we have an update from the Department of Corrections. I have two speakers, if you all would like to come forward. Good morning. If you all would state your name for the record, please, and then begin your presentation.
Karen Fannin, Director of Population Management for the department.
Hillary Daly, Deputy Commissioner of Support Services for the department. Good morning. We've been asked to provide an update on our inmate population trends, and I do bear with me because it is a lot of numbers. For the 3 fiscal years prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the average daily population was 23,168 in fiscal year 2017, 23,585 in fiscal year 18, and 23,888 in fiscal year 19. The consensus forecast prepared for the biennium to follow those fiscal years, which was 2022, projected the population to exceed 24,000 in fiscal years 20, 21, and 22. Fiscal year 2020's actual felon average daily population was 23,061. Fiscal years 21 and 22 were 18,876 and 18,708 respectively. For the current fiscal year, the felon population is averaging 19,740, and that's through this morning. It is trending higher than the consensus forecast for the fiscal year. However, we are able to accommodate that population within our current appropriations. Fiscal year 2024's forecast is 19,577. A new felon forecast, of course, will be prepared for inclusion in our 2024-2026 biennial budget request.
Deputy Commissioner's presentation covers the entire felon population, and we were asked to speak particularly regarding the prison population trends. So the department houses approximately half of its population in prisons. The prison population between 2017 and 2019 was trending upwards. The calendar year average in 2017 was 11,963, 12,246 in 2018, and 12,261 in 2019. In 2020 is when the department began to see the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Active outbreaks and quarantine protocols for safety led to a decrease in the prison population, dropping it to 11,177. The average in 2021 and 2022 was right under 10,000. Today's current prison population is at 10,575. And that concludes what we've had prepared.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. These numbers have always been kind of hard for us to get our head around, and I like the way you just give us a summary report. I think in some ways that's easier to understand than burying us in numbers. But so what I hear you saying is basically a little bit over half the population is in prison, and the rest is in the jails, and then and under active supervision. Is that correct?
We were just discussing our prison population. Of course, our supervised population is roughly 50,000, of course not included in the felon population.
So there's no supervision numbers included in these numbers. These are strictly people that are in custody.
Yes, sir.
Physically in custody.
Yes.
Okay, and so and so basically about half of those are in jails and half of them are in prison?
Roughly. There's a little smaller, greater percentage in prisons currently.
Okay. That's very helpful. May I have a follow-up, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. I am very interested in our restricted custody centers, in our jails. And there was a graph in our packet that showed that those numbers are way down. And I know from my area and being a former jailer, and we called it a work camp, but I took great pride in that facility and the impact it had on my inmates and our community. And I know there's other facilities around the state that feel the same way. And I haven't talked to my jailer in the last couple of weeks, but I know, in fact, for a while the facility was closed. And we weren't getting the benefit of the work of those inmates. We weren't getting the per diems. We didn't have anybody to man the gardens. We didn't have anybody to shovel snow. We didn't have anybody to pick up litter. We didn't have anybody to clean up cemeteries. We didn't have anybody to go pick up roadkill off the road. So it was a big issue for our county. How can we, and it appears to me anyway, and I would like for you to either confirm it or maybe I'm wrong, is that the answer is most of these people just aren't in jail anymore, right? Or are they somewhere else? Or why is our restricted custody centers the cheapest place that Kentucky can house a prisoner and the most productive prisoners in the state? Why can't these institutions get prisoners?
I think that's something we'll have to talk with our local facility staff with and get you an answer back. We want to make sure that you have the most accurate information. So we'll be happy to take that back and get you an answer.
I really would appreciate it because it's a grave concern, not just to me, but to quite a few counties, probably 11 of them just off the top of my head.
I don't see any. I do see one hand raised. Representative Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not really a question, just kind of an on notice. As you all may be aware, there's a jail correctional task force that has been formed. I know they will probably be reaching out to you all, but from an appropriations and revenue standpoint, I know the Chairman Petrie and myself, we're going to be looking for statistical analysis and some documents and historical trends. So if just like to have that relationship, within this interim, we're going to be working on that quite a bit, especially from our standpoint. So if we can just have that relationship that's open, we're going to be back and forth. We're going to need a lot of those available to us. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, I have a couple questions here. Prior to COVID and now, what trends were driving the inmate population? Do you see a difference?
I don't know that we see a difference so much. I would say it depends on, primarily the admissions from the court, from the judicial system. Any other trends you can? I mean, that's the primary, of course, driver for our population is adjudication.
Yeah, another other thing that has an impact on the population is things such as the parole grant rate.
Well, for the current biennium, is the total inmate population above or below what was estimated for budget purposes?
Right now, it's trending slightly higher, just a little over 600 average.
Is the budget sufficient for the current population at this time?
Yes, at this time.
All right. Any other questions? Senator Schickle's going for question number 3, or maybe a comment.
No, it's a question. Mr. Chairman, I want you to know I appreciate your indulgence. Thank you. And it goes a little bit to the question you asked, Mr. Chairman, and if you don't, and you may not have the answer to this, if you could get it to me, I would really appreciate it. Because I think this is something the public needs to be aware of because it definitely affects prison population. As you know, there's been a change in philosophy about people who are granted parole and when they do not follow the rules, for lack of a better term. And back in the old day, and that's called a technical violation. And for those of you people who are watching on the computer or maybe at home, that means that let's say you get a 10-year prison sentence for holding up a gas station and you're paroled. But the condition of your parole is you can't go to bars. Let's say maybe you can't go back to that gas station. They have a whole, you have to look for work, maybe go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm sure you're familiar. Those are all conditions of parole. Back in the old days, if you violated your parole, since you got out of jail early and didn't do your whole sentence, you got a break, but you couldn't follow the rules, you went back to prison. But that's no longer the case. The case today is they call it, quote unquote, a technical violation, which I think is a bad word for it because it's very significant, but they call it a technical violation. And they just call you in and say, well, make sure you stay out of bars, or if you do this again, you might go back to prison. But no one goes back to prison on a technical violation. You have to hold up another gas station or commit a criminal act. Is this a significant factor in prison population today, or not?
Well, I would like to go back and get you the accurate numbers on those. I don't have a technical violation or returns to custody numbers with me today, but we can definitely get you that information.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.